Hello and welcome back. My name is V and today we are going to be watching this video that probably has been seen by the entire internet and everyone's dog and mother and whatnot, and it's the World of Riot's MMO. Now, I was at first very hesitant to be uploading this kind of thing on my main channel because my main channel used to really only be focused on Final Fantasy XIV. But as we're kind of entering the period of Final Fantasy XIV, having these gaps between patches where there's not a lot of hype for it, and I made a video about this the other day where I explained like how I feel about my channel and the changes that are going to be happening in the future. I'm going to be more open towards uploading other MMORPG content in between the breaks of the patches, I suppose. So whenever there's nothing going on in Final Fantasy XIV, I will be checking these things out very slowly because I don't want to get overwhelmed, and I'm definitely not the kind of person who can be playing two MMORPGs at the same time passionately, or God forbid I go around collecting things in two games at the same time. But this is the game that I'm excited about. Now, as a little bit of a background, I'm not a League of Legends player. I played a little bit of like Legends of Runeterra, and that's about it. And of course, I don't really know like the lore of the characters or the world or anything. I recently watched Arcane and I loved the show, so that's kind of pretty much all that I know about the world and the setting. And I don't even know if the MMO is actually going to be including any of these characters whatsoever, or there's just going to be that setting that they're slowly introducing through Arcane, or that's already present in League of Legends but without the characters. So I don't even know that much, but I've been following the updates, like the development updates, through Twitter and whatnot, and everything is so far looking really promising, including the monetization systems, the classes, the jobs, and everything. Over the next few days, I think I want to be watching these videos that specifically cover these topics. So, in case you are not subscribed to Necrit, make sure to do so, because this is where I have found all of these videos, and there's like three or four. So, I think I might just like make a little bit of a playlist or something to put them in. But without further ado, let's watch the video and let's discuss it. Like I said, my knowledge on this is very limited, but I'm very curious, and I would love to hear everything you have to say about this video or about anything at all, really, in the comments. And of course, if you're not subscribed to the channel just yet and you enjoy MMORPGs, primarily Final Fantasy XIV, but in near future other titles as well, something like this, also make sure to subscribe. And yeah, let's watch the video.
In the past, MMOs were regarded as the godfathers of games. They were the peak of what developers could accomplish. Even though, looking back, that's a fairly subjective thing to say. Everyone knew MMOs had the power to create cult following, but also everyone knew making MMOs was hard. On average,
Expensive.
an MMO has to spend at least 6 years in the baking before it can get anywhere near being good.
Sheesh.
But that didn't stop companies from jumping onto the bandwagon anyway. And soon we could see dozens of new MMOs, all releasing in 2008. All being called the WoW killers. Spoiler alert, none of them did that. And unfortunately, we can feel the
I don't think it was necessary for all of them to be called the WoW killers, because as WoW was the biggest MMORPG back in the day, and probably the only one with a consistent player base, it didn't necessarily have to be killed. But some of these MMORPGs have developed their respective communities that are alive to this day. And I think I'm kind of embarking on this journey of actually discovering these communities and just seeing what these games are about, because I don't want to just spend my life playing like one or two MMORPGs and that being all I know. As a content creator, I feel like I have this responsibility towards the people that watch my content to just kind of, just provide a little bit more insight and be able to compare them at least.
ripple effects even now. It got to a point where every time a new MMO is announced, we all think the same thing. Oh. Anyway, when you're working on an MMO, you have to respect 3 pillars. Gameplay is king, social interactions matter, and the world setting is important. When Riot, announced their MMO, it became clear that two of the pillars are being respected, and the third one is already done. When it comes to the gameplay, it is currently in the hands of Ghostcrawler, someone who's been working on WoW during its best times, and someone who got a reputation for hating boomkins and loving mages. When it comes to the social interactions, it is a dance between the developers and the players. A dev can guide players towards social interactions, or they can annihilate them. And after that, the players usually find their own fun inside the MMO. From that point on, the devs should do everything in their power to support the players having fun in their own way. And finally, when it comes to the world of an MMO, in Riot's case, it's done. And it's been finished for quite a few years now. In fact, the world of Riot's
That's insane. Like, I could never develop games like this, especially, well, games at all, because I would lack the patience. Like, imagine, I don't know, imagine just like sitting on a project for years or years or years. Like, I have this very unhealthy attitude, and I don't know if anyone, watching this is weird like this as well, but I live in a very apocalyptic mind setting where I don't know. I like committing to longer term projects. Obviously, I do YouTube, which is a longer term project, but I always just try to make sure that every day I've kind of, I don't know, I've done most that I can with visible results, because like what if I'm like, I don't know, weirdly out of time or whatever. Like, I know it sounds silly, and I know that it's just my anxiety speaking, and that it's probably, nothing to worry about. Like, I shouldn't spend my life worrying like if there's something lurking or if there's something that's gonna happen. But like that mindset in itself would probably stop me from like committing to a project that is like 10 years in the making, and you can't actually see the results. Like, not that you can't see the results, but the what you are making is not public, like for that amount of years. To me, that's crazy, and I respect anyone who can do this.
MMO is in such a good state. They already have the continents, the zones, the cultures, and the races. And to a lesser degree, every zone already has its own storyline. Now, of
Wow.
course, unless you follow the lore of League of Legends, you wouldn't know about this. And that's why I decided to make this video. I want to show you all the zones we are going to see in the MMO and what sorts of
The
quests we
fact
are
that he
going to do
made this
there.
is crazy.
So, for the purpose of this video, I will assume you have no idea what League of Legends is about. You have no idea what the universe is about, but you like MMOs, your hairline is receding, and you have a crippling fear of Nintendo 64 controllers. To which I
What?
might add, why do you think I'm wearing hats? But now, without further ado, let's have a look at all the zones in Riot's
Sheesh,
MMO.
that's savage.
This is Runeterra, the world of League of Legends. Right now, the world is separated into 10 main regions. But these 10 regions don't cover all the land on the map, so there are some mini-zones in between them. And the lore already revealed that there is gonna be another continent further to the east. That definitely sounds like a future expansion to me.
Okay.
In fact, it would be foolish to release all of these regions at launch. You can easily turn
Yeah,
half of
probably.
these into separate expansions. And because a lot of people already know and love these regions, the hype behind these expansions would be big. With that said, I know a lot of you would like to play as Shurimans or Ionians. And now you may be cursing me for suggesting that these would be expansions. But the lore can justify giving you these nations as playable races without having their regions. I'll show you how Riot can pull this off in a bit. First,
That would be kind of like how they introduced auras in Final Fantasy 14, I suppose. Like they introduced them like as refugees without actually showing their like their world. I think they got introduced before we got to see their continent and such. Didn't that happen like that?
regions Riot's MMO has to start with. The Northern Continent. This entire continent is called Valoran.
Okay.
Not Valorant, Valorant. And this is where the absolute core of this world is. The two main regions here are Demacia and Noxus. They are the two big rivals equivalent to the Horde and the Alliance. While I
Okay, but to me it's weird kind of how Piltover and Zaun are included in the Noxus region, but they are not, like the region is not named after them, so I would assume that they kind of belong to Noxus.
would like to say that Demacia is your classic normie human region, it's
Okay.
not really true. Runeterra doesn't
No.
really have a normal place, there is something cool happening in every region. And
Okay.
Demacia has racism. Okay, maybe not racism, because Demacia doesn't mind Yordles or Minotaurs, but they really hate mages. That's because
Oh.
in the past, their rivals almost annihilated half of the world using magic. And
Okay.
so, Demacia was built inside a magic-absorbing forest.
Hmm.
Therefore, Demacia is a really cool place where you can hide from magic. When it comes to the visuals of the zone, you can see a lot of lush fields, it is surrounded by mountains, but the iconic part of Demacia are the buildings. They are made of petricite, which is a combination of stone and the magic-absorbing wood. Because these
Okay.
ancient magic-absorbing trees were grey, all the buildings have a marble-like appearance. And yes, given what material they are using, all the buildings in Demacia
They kind of remind me of Greece. Like I don't know how many of you have been to Greece. Maybe not like fully, but normally like when you go to Greece, like when you go to these like coastline cities, you will see like a lot of like cities where like the buildings are white, but like the roofs are blue. I think they're very cute.
also absorb magic. So should a mage visit this region,
Sheesh.
let's just say it's gonna be a painful experience. On top of this, let's not forget that Demacians can weaponize Petricite. They can turn it into Petricite Steel, which gives you your classic anti-magic weapons, and you can sculpt Petricite constructs.
I can already see that there's gonna be so many like transmog slash like, glamour options for these kinds of things. It's gonna be so good.
Which wake up after absorbing magic. Simply said, these guys just really don't like magic. The irony is, they've been absorbing it for years now. And this is where the story would kick in. You see, the Demacians are so afraid of magic, they founded the Mage Seeker Order. This is an order of people who hunt mages, they throw them in the prison, and they
Okay.
torture them until their body gives up on magic. So yes, being a mage is a crime in Demacia. The thing
Damn.
is, people still get naturally born with magical abilities. You can't stop it from happening. So not only
You
are
have to
there
leave?
mages hiding in the royal court, right now there is a mage civil war happening in Demacia, where mages and people who don't hate mages rise up to fight for moral rights.
I honestly I have no clue how this setting and this lore is even like told through League of Legends. I'm not trying to like be offensive or anything like that. I have nothing against the game, but to me the game was just always just really like generic in a way that like, you log in, you play a match, you pick your heroes or whatever. Like where is this lore even being told? Where does this information come from? Like I've never even witnessed or heard anyone who plays League of Legends to be like I don't know passionate about the lore or anything like that. And I know plenty of people who do play it because I used to go and admittedly I still go to like PC arcades where my friends would like gather and basically just play games all together like in a community environment. That's my idea of going out. Like when I go out, that's what I do. And plenty of them play League of Legends, but I've never heard anyone like trying to talk to me about the lore. Like I know I sound prejudiced, but most of the time they will just rage and it kind of throws me off, so I never like even really ask about it. Like I normally wear like earphones. We all just like sit in the same room, wear like earphones, and basically just I don't know. Whenever I don't know someone's on a break, we just like get a drink. I don't know, walk around, talk about the games, but I've never ever discussed League of Legends lore, and now I'm just like, do they even know their lore?
So should we do some quests in this zone? This is gonna be the core story.
Mm-hmm.
Mages trying to overthrow racist leadership following old laws. So the main enemy NPCs might be mages and witches. But I
Okay.
know what you're thinking now, and don't worry. There will be plenty of boars to kill here too. Or at least there are loads of wolves here, as well as
Oh.
stags. And we can't forget the iconic Demacian raptors. But further to the south, we might find some crag beasts, tiny woolly elephants, and
Oh.
yes, Of course, in the Argent Mountains there are also dragons. Loads and loads of dragons. But that's about it for Demacia. Fun fact, the capital city of Demacia is called the Great City of Demacia. Sounds dumb, but Runeterra was not the first one to come up with this. But thankfully the other regions are a bit more creative with their names. So now let's move away from the normie region and let's have a look at the badass region, Noxus. If you're planning on playing a warrior with oversized weapons and overcompensating lush hair, this is the region for you.
Yes!
This place actually has a long and badass history, but we really don't have the time to explain it now. So just know that originally it was built by the most badass warrior in the history of Runeterra. This motherfucker literally died on a mountain of corpses. And after he died, he was too angry to stay dead, so he just became the god of the underworld.
Oh god.
When this guy lived, he built the Immortal Bastion, which is to this day the largest structure on the entirety of Runeterra. And currently he is banished underneath the Immortal Bastion, but only a few people know about it. So you know, that's a future raid boss. Anyway, the Immortal Bastion is the capital city of the Noxian Empire, with Noxus being one of the most brutal nations in Runeterra. It is brutal because the nation is surrounded by rocky earth. It is hard to grow plants here. So Noxians are forced into conquering surrounding land for resources to survive. That's why when you go to the map you can notice that the Noxian territory is all over the place. It's because these are all the places Noxus has already conquered. Although, when I say it like that, you may imagine Noxus brutally...
Oh, this lady has the same hairstyle as me. I only recently got a haircut, I'm loving it. Anyway.
raiding everything. But that's not true. They like to absorb the surrounding nations into their empire. After all, it's just more human resources. Most of the time, they only remove the royalty and they let the leaderless people join their empire. And that's because Noxus values strength above all. And rulers tend to not be good fighters. This is what you can see in the After Victory cinematic. They killed the king because he was weak and let everyone else join them. Fun fact, conquering nations is so iconic for Noxus.
Well, that's not necessarily bad for the people. Okay, this is gonna sound savage, but not all conquerings are necessarily bad. Sometimes, I don't know, sometimes your original leader will have you struggle because they're incapable of managing your kingdom or your area or whatever. It's rare that conquerings are good, but sometimes there are places, imaginary or not imaginary, where you just sit there with your government just kind of wishing, to be conquered by your neighboring country and be like, hey, can you please just take us and just assimilate us with your country so we can have what you have, I don't know, honestly, it's not always necessarily slaughter and devastation and just everything bad. Like if they're successful and if you're struggling as a nation because of your leaders, if they remove your leaders and they kind of take you in, that's not necessarily the worst thing for all the people. It's the worst thing for the leaders who get their heads chopped off. But
saying kill them until they are family. So when it comes to the quests in Noxus, it is most likely going to be helping the Empire expand its territory. Although, this region has its own unique enemies too. Inside the Immortal Bastion there is a cult known as the Black Rose. This cult is connected to the darkest of magics. So be ready to fight Hemomancers, witches, demons, and the Grey Legion, which is an army of soldiers revived with blood magic to fight for the Empire again. And when it comes to collecting 10 bear asses, here we have the native Drakehounds and Basilisks. Now, while Noxus and Demacia are the main rivals here, both of them are also constantly repelling raids from the north. So now, let's have a look at the Freljord. Just like pretty much any region on Runeterra, Freljord has a long history. But for the purpose of this video, just know that the maddening old gods known as the Watchers of the Void, who want to devour the entire reality only because it keeps waking them up, once tried to breach into reality here. They almost succeeded because they tricked the Ice Witch Lysandra into helping them. Fortunately, she realized how wrong she was, and she managed to freeze half of the kingdom with the Watchers still beneath them.
Damn.
So these days, the Ice Witch is the only person holding back the end of reality by keeping the Watchers frozen. So at some point in the future, you bet one of these woken up frozen Watchers is gonna be a raid boss. Now, when it comes to the NPCs, this is where things get diverse. First of all, remember that the Freljord is brutally cruel. Everything is frozen, and survival is everything. So the first enemy here would be the wildlife. From Rhymefangs to Yetis to Druvasks to Elnuks to Mammoths to the worst of them all, Poros. Next we are going to fight the Freljordians themselves. There are three main tribes here. The Avarosans, who are quite peaceful, the Winter's Claw, who are quite brutal.
I love how he's like, we're quite peaceful, but there's like a lady standing there with a bow and arrow.
Brutal, and the Frostguard, Lysandra's followers who hold back the Watchers. And let me tell you, these guys have some badass armor. Among the notable tribes there are also the Ursine, which are shamans who worship the Volibear, the primal god of the wild who slowly turns his worshippers into twisted animalistic monstrosities. Speaking of which, yes, there are also the primal gods of Freljord. And finally, we need to talk about the Iceborn. When the Watchers tried to arrive here, they tainted the ice around them. This special ice is called the True Ice, and it is so dangerous you literally die if you touch it. However, the Watchers also tainted some people, giving them the ability to touch the ice. It is still extremely painful for them to hold a true ice weapon, but at least they can survive it. These people are known as the Iceborn. But people were not the only things that were tainted. There are also ice trolls, some of whom are also Iceborn. To be honest, these guys were made to have their own dungeon. But there are also some animals that were twisted by the Watchers. And Lysandra is even twisting some beings herself to make them serve her. So overall, Freljord is gonna have a lot of cool warriors, shamans, and horrors. So these would be the three regions on the main continent.
I love how Poros just like made their very, very, very short appearance as he said that.
But this place is actually so big it can easily make the base world of the game. Especially since there are a bunch of small...
So it's like the Canada of this continent, I see.
Smaller regions in between them. There is Nockmerge full of witches, Argent Mountains with their dragons, Tokugol with void monsters, Dalamore Plains with him, and so much more.
Who is him?
But from here, you can cleverly set up the expansions because of how well everything is interconnected. So now, let's have a look at the continent to the east called Ionia. Ionia has a very close connection to Noxus. You can only guess why. It's because Noxians once tried to conquer it all during an event simply called the Invasion of Ionia. This was a horrible war full of using children as soldiers because Noxians thought Ionians wouldn't fight back against children. And chemical weapons. Lots and lots of chemical weapons. Speaking of which, remember Sin?
Okay, so there's is there a comic book? Because or like manga or whatever, because I'm seeing him use a lot of these references. So there must be like lore to read.
From Arcane, he's the guy who chemically devastated Ionia.
Oh.
Eventually, Noxus failed, but they kept their small controlled territories.
Oh.
So the first quest here could be simply boarding a ship, sailing over, and exploring the place for the Noxian Empire. Now, when it comes to Ionia itself, the place gets mystical. Everything here is alive and connected to the spirit of nature. And I mean everything, from the animals to the people to the buildings. Everything is alive. So if you anger Mother Nature, your house can twist and strangle you in your sleep.
That's disgusting.
So you can only imagine how Mother Nature fought against Noxians. Usually a river came alive to drown them. That's why all the buildings here look like they were woven from wood. It's because they were. With nature magic, people let nature build their houses. It also means that sometimes your house can just walk away. When it comes to the NPCs here, obviously there's gonna be a lot of nature spirits. and a lot more of simply mystical animals, from giant flying
Oh,
tigers to the never ending story. But be ready to also face local Ionians, blade masters, shadow cultists, murderers, and ninjas, both good, bad, and the in between. But
what's the
finally,
in
there is also one
between?
more enemy that we could face: the furries. That's right, this race is known as the Vastaya. They are half humans and half
Okay, for a split second, I thought that their name was actually like the furries. Like, did they really do that?
magical animals. And yes, canonically, the species was born in exactly the way you are thinking. But to be fair, the Vastaya are quite cool and they are definitely gonna be a playable race. Just like Yordles, who also like Ionia a lot. Lastly, after Noxians ravaged Mother Nature, demons started occupying all the places filled with misery and doubt. So that's gonna be a nice bonus enemy. So yes, the exploration of Ionia and the
What
raid on the Shadow
what anime is that?
Order could be a really cool first expansion. But it's definitely not Riot's only option, because we can also go south to Piltover and Zaun. These are the ones people will know about, simply because this is where Arcane took place. Piltover and Zaun are two massive cities located.
I can't believe it took me almost a year to actually watch Arcane. It's like, I don't know, not being in touch with like the League of Legends community all that much. It's just kind of like, I don't know, the news of Arcane have reached me, but I initially like didn't get as interested for some reason. Now you could be asking yourself like how, but like I just didn't know much about it. I just didn't know it was gonna be that good. And then I had this, I don't know, like this anxiety and like fear of missing out that like basically instead of making me watch, it just turned into me dreading watching it because I missed out on the beginning. So it took me like the longest time to just kind of sit down and watch it, which was a shame because I think I missed out on like, a lot of just cool conversations and references and memes as well. But, here we are.
One above the other. And they are so massive they could easily be turned into their own playable zones. They are both focusing on futuristic technology powered up by magic of the Hextech gemstones. Using this magic, they can power up anything from guns to augmented limbs to vehicles. Visually, it is simply futuristic Victorian era. And unfortunately, there wouldn't be much of enemy variety. We would likely fight the rich houses of Piltover and their deadly assassins, with the occasional thief on the streets, corrupt wardens, and the occasional rogue steam golem.
I mean, it's a
But things get a
city
bit more interesting
environment.
in the undercity known as Zaun. Zaun is the dirty underbelly covered in thick toxic smoke. Because the majority of people are poor here, they developed a cheaper alternative to Hextech called Chemtech. This artificial green stuff can
Nah.
power up cheaper limb replacements, as well as highly unstable weaponry. Zaun is also controlled by the Cam Barons, which are obviously gonna be the main enemy here. But on the side, we may also meet some chemical mutants, unstable constructs, as well as some mass murderers and people who hunt down mass murderers. And funnily enough, at the very bottom of Zaun itself, there are the hidden ruins of an ancient city full of traps. That is obviously gonna be a cool dungeon.
Yeah.
So yes, there is not much more that I can add here. Piltover and Zaun were simply explored in Arcane. So if you like the series, you are gonna like this place. From here, we can travel further south to Shurima. Shurima used to
Does
be
it?
a massive empire that ruled the world. But after the emperor got betrayed by his best friend, the entire empire collapsed. This region is a massive desert with the occasional city near a river. In the center of the region, there is the Sun Disk, a colossal piece of star metal that has the power to reflect celestial magic. The Shurimans use this celestial magic to turn their best soldiers into the Ascended, also known as the Golden God Warriors.
I see that they're also like doing this thing that I think is pretty normal in MMORPGs to be taking like references from the cultures all over the world as we know it and just kind of turn them into like separate factions or places or whatever. So you can kind of tell which places were inspired like by which culture, whether this is like the Egyptian culture, some of the the other ones were like, I don't know, what's it called, oh my god, the where is it, the Freljord. It looks very I don't know, in my opinion, very Norse, I guess. And like I like that because even though yes, this is like a fantasy world, it gives you a little bit of a like a sense of familiarity.
The Watchers sent through some void beasts that consumed Ikathia and polluted Shurima to this day. To fight back the void, Shurima does have a lot of hidden tombs around with hidden god warrior weapons. Not to mention that Shurima also has a circle of time mages who are trying to freeze the void in time. Now, as I mentioned near the beginning of the video, even if Shurima becomes an expansion, they can still easily make Shurimans a playable race
Why?
because they
How?
are already connected to Noxus. As you can see, of course, Noxians already conquered part of Shurima, so some Shurimans are fighting for Noxus. Also, as a cool fact, for those of you who liked Arcane, Hex Crystals are harvested in Shurima. That's why a Shuriman expansion would be a great follow-up to Piltover and Zaun.
Oh gosh, I hope that doesn't smell like a borrowed system already.
And again, that's why Riot can easily turn only the northern continent into the base world. Anyway, going west from Shurima, we arrive at Mount Targon. This place is incredibly unique. First of all, this mountain is not natural. It was literally pulled up from the ground by celestial gods. And that's because this place serves as a portal to the celestial realm, also known as Targon Prime. Now, because this mountain was pulled up, it also has some unique features. For example, you may find frozen lakes frozen horizontally on the mountain.
Oh wow.
And the very peak of the mountain is special too. Should a mortal reach the peak despite the brutal climate and the deadly wildlife, either they die from exhaustion, or the celestial gods deem them worthy and they become an ascended aspect. There is aspect of
That's
war,
wild.
aspect of the sun, aspect of the moon, aspect of the twilight, aspect of the guardian, and so on. Simply said, after people reach the peak, they become some of the strongest beings on the entire planet.
So they either die or they pass the test.
Of course, the mountain is full of people who worship the celestial demigods. And I speculate this is where we could get a lot of cool armor sets.
Yeah.
There are the Solari, who are devoted to the aspect of the sun. Then there are their rivals, the Lunari, who are devoted to the aspect of the moon. But also the tribe I assume will become a playable class, the Warriors of Rakor. Of course, besides just humans, Targon also has all sorts of furry Vastaya. Near the bottom of the mountain you may notice that the mountain is alive, but also there are Stellarcorns, a variety of mind-bending creatures, and loads of dragons.
These are
Speaking
so
of
cool.
which, remember that this place is linked to the celestial realm. So this is where we may also meet the star-forging celestial dragon Aurelian Soul,
Oh, I know
as
that
well as
one.
all sorts of other celestial.
Some of these creatures I remember from Legends of Runeterra, and mostly, I don't know, like I don't remember playing cards. I remember which cards destroy boards and destroy just like everything that you have and love, and it's so sad.
Beings. A lot of these would make for interesting bosses. In fact, the ascension of Mount Targon would be a really cool raid. Next, on the other side of Shurima, there is Ixtal. This is a special place where people are mastering the elemental magic. They are using it for everything: fishing, smithing, walking, and this place is definitely gonna be saved for an expansion. Basically, remember when Icathian asked the Watchers for help? And then that happened? Ixtal was their neighbor, and after they saw the Void devour an entire kingdom, they believed the Void would soon devour the entire world. So, using their elemental magic, Ixtal built massive walls of plants around their entire region, isolating themselves from the rest of the world. For 3,500 years, Ixtal stayed isolated, believing that the world outside of their walls was devoured by the Void. But now, very recently, some mages found out that the world outside is completely fine. So now, the Ixtali mages are slowly revealing themselves. To be
Uh-huh.
honest, Ixtal is
This
the
is so
most
cool though.
underdeveloped region in Runeterra. We know the region has a lot of hunting Vastaya, deadly plants, and some elemental dragons, but most of the region is still a mystery to us. So at least here, Riot will have the freedom to try something new.
Oh, so they didn't mean underdeveloped like the nation being underdeveloped because of like lack of cooperation or maybe technology reaching them or whatever. Maybe maybe he's talking about like the amount of lore that is familiar to us or the players or whatever.
Now we leave the main continent to visit the last two regions. First of all, there is Bilgewater. If you like pirate adventures, this is gonna be your place. This is where we are going to explore inns and gambling dens, even some local temples worshipping the god of motion, Nagake Boros. Here we are going to fight pirates and sea monsters, sea witches, sea Vastaya, maybe some demons. And possibly we'll side with Sarah Fortune
Okay,
to
these I
fight the king
remember.
of the pirates, Gangplank. But there's a lot more here. Last year, Riot released their RPG, which was set in Bilgewater. So not only can we already explore this place in detail,
Oh,
but it even has a
I didn't even know about this.
monster journal. And at a quick glance, you can already see some really cool bosses too. However, this place is also linked to the last place I want to show you today, the Shadow Isles. See, every year the horrors of the Shadow Isles lurk out, and Bilgewater just happens to be the closest place. So every year, Bilgewater is fighting the undead. Once upon a time, the Shadow Isles used to be the Blessed Isles, a rich place full of
The
advanced magic.
irony.
Long story short, there was a young asshole king who wanted to revive his dead queen. And in the process, he
Oh,
accidentally released dark necromantic magic. This
damn.
magic destroyed the island and made it home for undeath. In the lore, this event is called the Ruination. And because the RPG is called the Ruined King, it may not be a surprise to you that you also get to explore the Shadow Isles there. And there they have anything you can imagine. Undead horrors creeping everywhere. And should we ever venture into these islands, I have
That would be
no
one cool
idea who we're going
expansion.
to fight. The ruined king who caused all of this is banished elsewhere. Thresh, who siphoned his magic after
Oh, I thought he was dead.
he was banished, also left the Isles. And even Hecarim, the most brutal soldier of them all, is currently around Demacia.
I
So the
remember him
Shadow Isles
too.
don't currently have a main
Nasty
baddie.
card.
So this is where Riot could push forward some of the side characters. Now, even though these have all been the regions that are currently set up on Runeterra, Riot has already confirmed that there is a new continent further to the east. Currently, it is planned to be revealed in the upcoming Ruination novel. And
Okay.
so far, we know
Oh,
that
okay.
this new continent is where the ruined King Viego is from. And this is also where he was banished at the end of his story. All
Ah.
we know about that place is that it is quite mystical. There are yet more dragons here, and in fact, Kamavor, which is the ruined king's nation,
He's giving me some serious Arthas vibes.
has a lot of draconic armor. So should Riot run out of places to explore, don't worry, they can always make up more.
I don't think
But
they're gonna run
that's all
out.
I wanted to show you today. As someone who's been following the lore of League of Legends from the very beginning, I can tell you, I'm very confident the setting of Riot's MMO is gonna be great. Their incredible writers have been preparing the world for years now. And now, it's time to harvest the fruit. If you like this video, let me know in the comments below. Because right now, I still have 3 more topics that I could talk about in regards to the MMO. I especially want to talk about the potential raid bosses we can face, and the potential classes we could play. And as someone who has collected an unholy amount of transmog, I would love to show you all the cool armor sets this universe has. But that's it for this video. See you in 6 to 8 years when the MMO gets released.
Oh, this was a good video. I don't know if you knew that the video was gonna be so successful, but the video has what? It has like 1.7 million views, which is insane. And if you haven't subscribed to Neckard, make sure to do so. I actually really loved this video. It was a very good one. And I love seeing content creators just put an insane amount of effort into making something like this. I unfortunately, I don't know, sometimes whenever I see a video like this, I feel like I lack the patience to, like, go ahead and create a masterpiece like this. But I'm always happy to see others do it. But anyways, I really enjoyed this. I learned a lot. There's a lot of lore to discover, and honestly, it got me a little interested in, like, the other materials that you can, like, find, like mangas, novels, and whatnot. Now I'm curious as to what exists there. So if you're a lore geek, feel free to just, give me some tips in the comments or whatever as to, like, what I could, read or watch or find or whatever. I would really appreciate it. And yeah, that's gonna be it for today. This game in 6 to 8 years, if we're all still there and kicking. I would love to cover it. I'm very excited for it. Probably not as excited as someone who's been a long time fan, but I'm slowly getting into it and just kind of learning about the universe. So I'm very happy to, to indulge in the excitement anyways. But thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. I'll be covering, like I said, more of his videos that he actually mentioned at the end of this video, because he actually went through and made them. So we'll be commenting on those ones as well. And yeah, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure to do so, and I will be seeing you in my next one. Bye.